So for me, heritage interpretation is the art to relate the site or whatever, the collection that you are trying to communicate, to relate that to the audience. So to relate it to the meaning-making reference, to the meaning-making framework and value framework. I think that's the art of interpretation.
A normal tour would take about 2 hours. So this is the building that was built, it started 1543, so 16th century. That was the residence for the man, the top man, with some of his colleagues. And in front you had the 2 other buildings, the 2 other wings, which were the farmhouse.
The InHerit project wants to focus on professional development of heritage interpreters, especially in the field of learning. Because we think that, first of all, we have a slogan, learning happens everywhere, that you do not only learn in the classroom, that people learn on the job, when they are volunteers somewhere, where they are in the youth movement or whatever. And that learning should be validated as well. But especially in our case, we think that heritage contexts are the ideal context for learning as well. And in that respect, we think that heritage interpretation is the ideal tool to provoke that learning, to improve the learning experiences of people when they are on heritage sites or in a museum, seeing a collection or that kind of thing. And in InHerit, we try to make that in service training a special training, what we call competence-oriented or competence-driven. And we also try to create the right mechanisms and give the right instructions for that in-service training to be certified and validated.
You could have mentioned that he was a really stingy guy, that chap. I read about this actually. You know what? He was squeezing the property like a lemon, right? Throwing the money in the way of his mistress, who happened to be an abbess. Both took orders, had a couple of children, as you do. Go on.
If we try to identify what is competence-oriented training, it's better to start with what is competence-oriented learning. And I think that we've a long tradition of learning by, let's say, processing books and applying that later on. But a competence-oriented learning process is a process of learning by doing, learning by discovery. So that means that the actual experience comes first, and the theory and the knowledge is derived from the experience. So that means that we are moving from learning to act, which we did in the past. We learned and then we acted, towards acting to learn. So we do the action, we engage in the action, and from that we learn and we derive our professional level.
For us, it's a good way to discuss competence and quality in heritage interpretation with other people, other partners within Europe. But it also gives us an opportunity to discuss quality and competence within heritage interpretation within Sweden with other people that are not already involved in that area. And of course we will use the project results to improve the competence building and the competence development of the heritage interpreters in Sweden. As a part of the already activities that we have had within the project, we have learned that this is a good way to work. The competence-oriented approach in Corset, it has seems to have been a successful way of having courses.
We asked the participants to come with a short. They were given a task before to prepare a guided tour like they would normally, and they gave it to one another, and then we discussed what they had done, and then we had the training on interpretation, and then they got to repeat the exercise once more with their new experiences and new knowledge. And I think they were really appreciated that approach.
So we're talking about all kind of professionals working in the heritage sector. That can be the manager, but it can be a guide. That can be the person who is planning an exhibition on site. Can be the person who is going to create the signposts or the information panels in a heritage site. So those people that are trying to communicate with the visitor, with the audience, those people should gain with what we call good interpretation.
When I say crick, you say crack. Crick! Crack. The way you say crack tells me how much you want the story. Crick! Crack. Crick! Crack. Crick! Crack. In the beginning, God made man and woman equal in all things. In the age-old tradition, man and woman made up by making... No. Come on, let's get it. Man and woman made up by making love. Okay? I want you to cast your mind back, okay? To that moment when you felt not love, but love. Man and woman made up by making